Hi, my name is Linda Crowe, and I'm the Vice President of Digital Marketing Solutions with Brightcove. And today we're going to talk about the 2016 B2B Content Marketing Research. Today I'm joined by Ardath Albee, Carla Johnson, Jeannine Rossignol, and Vishal Khanna. So Jeannine, respondents were asked to identify their top priorities, and becoming a better writer was at the bottom of the list. Is that surprising to you?
You know, it is, because I don't know how you can tell your story if you're not a good writer. You know, one of the things that I've noticed with my teams in the past is that as marketers, we were really good program managers and we were really good strategic thinkers, but we weren't necessarily good writers. And over the years, we've had to become good writers as well. And it's not a skill that everybody's had, that everybody's born with. It's something you have to work at. And I found that a lot of people didn't want to work as hard at that as other things, and they relied on, for instance, things would come to my desk to take a look at. And I'd get out my red pen and I would sit there and I would mark it up because it wasn't good writing. It was good. It was a good thought. It was a good idea. It was maybe even a good story, but it wasn't written well, and I would rewrite it. And I noticed that people weren't disciplined. They just kept bringing things to me because they knew I'd get my red pen out and I would edit it. And finally, at a team meeting, I handed out everybody a red pen, and I said, "It's time you start using it, and you start editing your own work before it comes to me." And I think that it's a skill and it's a discipline that we all need as marketers. We have to be good writers. It's just not a choice anymore.
But do you think, in the survey results, I think one of the things that bothers me is you look at the top goals and, creating more engaging content. Well, how do they think they're going to do that if they're not better writers?
I think part of it is how people look at writers and what their role is. And I think people who say that writing is the least important thing on this list are people who look at writers as tactical executors. So they're people who, okay, let's come up with our story, let's come up with all this stuff, and after we decide, now let's hand it off to the writer and they go make it happen. But they're not looking at writers as really, truly strategic people who are a part of that team, who understand the structure of a story and how it comes about and how you engage along the way, because that's a real value that writing brings that people don't understand.
I wonder, though, in the survey, if some of it isn't driven by the fact that we are much more social, and that, with the millennials, that the focus isn't necessarily on writing anymore, but it's about, video. It's about pictures. It's about, even the tweets, it's not necessarily good grammatical English. You've got a lot of other things happening inside of there. And so is that driving us to think that to be great storytellers, we don't have to be great writers?
Well, there's a survey that just came out, and I wish I could remember who did it. After this, I'm sure it'll come to me. But what it found was more than half, I can't remember what the number was, like 65% of buyers said biggest turnoff was grammatical errors and bad writing on a website. So, we can, and I kind of hate that we say it's okay on social media that grammar doesn't matter, that spelling doesn't matter, that we can be that casual, because it's also, I think, a reflection on our brands.
I think so.
I really do.
If I see a misspelling or a grammatical error on a website, on one of its main pages, I'm probably done with that engagement. I'll go look for someone else. I think even at this conference, I saw a brochure with a misspelling on the back page of the brochure. That's enough to make you rethink the company that they would let that slide through, and so that becomes the importance of each individual being a good writer. But I think to your point, it's equally important that everybody's a good designer as well. Now that we do have to engage with more than just words, but also images, video, etc., we almost have to have this sort of Renaissance marketing person capacity where we can do writing, video, design, and probably the next thing down the line, whatever that is.
So if people want to become better writers, what's your advice for them?
Read.
Read, absolutely. Read,
Right.
read everything and read things outside of marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Read what is classically great writing.
I have a MFA in creative writing, and the favorite exercise I was given was to start typing Hemingway. and you just type Hemingway, and then when you finish typing the chapter, keep on writing. And what happens is you learn to write like Hemingway, because you learn the cadence and the rhythm of the author. And I think you can do the same thing with writing good content for the web. You know, look at what works well and write that, and then go from there to write your own content.
Learn to do free writing every morning just to free my brain, and I still do it today. I do it for at least half an hour when I first sit down at my desk before I open my email or anything, and just free write about whatever I'm thinking about for that day. And I think the more you write, the better you get at it. But the other thing that I think people overlook with writing is that writing is really about thinking. And so it helps you think better or more strategically when you're putting words down on paper and just free writing. And sometimes I'll do it freehand with a pen, and other times I'll just sit at the keyboard and type without even looking at the screen, just thinking about what's going on. But I think it helps you become a more strategic thinker with the writing as well, and I don't think that's a skill we should be overlooking as marketers.
Now, do either of you with your teams, do you focus on writing skills? Do you do things to develop the writer side of your teams?
Absolutely. Going back to the first question on editorial mission, we have a mission and a tone that we want to have in all of our work, and we train our writers pretty in depth to make sure they get it. What it takes is a red pen for the first 2 months, and that's usually what it takes if you have a good writer. And then they get it, and your red pen gets used less and less, and then they're sort of on their own. But you have to. Even great writers have to be trained to write within the narrow confines of your brand.
Mm-hmm.
I think for a lot of people, writing is scary because they read great writing and aren't necessarily a great writer themselves. And you need to build an infrastructure that's going to support them in their learning, in their learning path, in their journey. And so, having the training available, being supportive when they say, "Can you take a look at this? I'm not sure. Is this okay?" And so you need to make it okay to not be, great at the beginning, but build a path for them to get better along the way.
I've been doing a lot of editorial coaching now that a lot of my clients are hiring writers and building in-house teams. And one of the things you learn very quickly is how to give feedback in a way that is nurturing rather than, and I tend to be blunt because I'm in a hurry and whatever, and I have to remember to slow down and think of a really great way to say whatever I want to say and a way to help them reach farther. I don't know how to structure things. What makes a good story, what creates a good flow. You need to start with the hook and then prove your premise with 3 points and then tie back to the hook and wrap it up with a bow at the end, right? It's a basic structure. And most people don't understand how to put those things together. So I think being really helpful with that, but encouraging is key, like you said.
Now, do you have a fair amount of writing in your roles from the corporate perspective, or is it most of all identifying what great writing looks like or engaging content?
For me, it's a lot less now than it used to be, just because I got busier and let go of that, and also had writers who were trained. More of my role is editorial, and so I rarely start writing anything, mainly because I don't have 4 hours that I can sit there and devote to writing good content, and I think it demands time and quietness to do it. So I give it to my writers, and I tell them, go write from home, go to a coffee shop, take your 4 hours, and then I play the editorial role. I wish I could write more. I tried recently, and I got about 30 minutes in and gave up and called the writer in. So.
Yeah, I spend a lot more time editing than I do writing, but it's one of those skills that if you don't keep doing it, it does slide. And so, a personal goal of mine is to always be writing something. It doesn't necessarily have to be for business, it could be for pleasure, but to constantly keep writing so that I don't lose that skill.
And I think even the discipline is part of the skill, the discipline to write well, the discipline to practice. Like you do, Ardath, every morning you get up and you do some sort of practice that keeps your mind in that mode, that it's a discipline for you.
One of the things I'm wondering with you guys is, are you seeing a need to reskill marketers? Now that things like writing are coming more to the fore, is there more of a need for additional training or up-leveling skill sets to keep up with how marketing is developing?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's lacking overall is that the skill was never developed to be a good writer. And especially when you get recent college graduates that come out and they're not good writers. Nobody's taught them either from a business perspective or even from more of a storytelling. I don't think it's a reskilling, it's from the beginning.
I start by hiring writers and train them to do other things. It's much different because I have a very small team, so it's easier to do that. But the two staffers I have both are writers, and then one of them has been sort of nurtured, and she had her own skills in doing other things as well. But that key component of being a good writer was absolutely essential in the recruitment process for me.
That's a great point.
I just helped one of my clients decided to develop a centralized content agency within the company, which was a huge step for them. And my client was tasked with running this new agency. And so she came to me and said, I need to hire 10 writers. I said, oh, great, this is wonderful. Yeah, and then it took us 6 months. We interviewed 100 of them before we found 10. The company sells into 17 industries, so we said pick one industry that you're comfortable with and write for that. Nice, easy assignment. Oh my goodness, it was horrifying. No structure. They went, and we were very careful that all of the resources we gave them to write the pieces with had no product information. They went to the company's website to get product information to put into the pieces. They used the company name. They oriented the pieces around the company, not the customer. It was just craziness. But I agree with you. They're not being taught how to write.
So thanks everybody for your time. I really appreciate it. It was a great conversation. And for those of you who want more information, you can download the content from the Content Marketing Institute website. It's the 2016 B2B Content Marketing Research.